Welcome to the Squares of the Roundtable podcast. My name is Jeff Stahn, and with me is...
Ivan Rivera and...
Mike Boyle.
So the first episode, we want to thank people for joining us and enjoying what was there. I know there were a lot of people it was a little spoilery, and they're like, who are you guys? So we're kind of going to do a little bit more about... This is kind of like the origin. This is about like how we got bit by a radioactive spider or got hit with gamma rays or left an exploding planet or something,
or
right?
Just got rich.
A rock, you know.
But yeah. No.
Formal introductions are in order, so here we go.
Or informal introductions.
Oh, yes.
Formal? What do you mean? I didn't wear a tux.
I'm not even wearing a shirt.
You don't want to know what I'm wearing.
Okay, we've gone too far as usual. All right, so who wants to? How do we start? What do we start? Where do we say?
Where do we begin?
Yeah, really.
Okay.
It all started when the Earth cooled, and then the dinosaurs came.
Yeah, they
and
died.
They got too big and fat, and they all died, and they turned into oil. And then the Arabs came, and they bought Mercedes-Benzes.
Oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz?
Okay.
Well, anyway, in 1994, I started broadcasting school, and I interned at this crummy AFM radio station out in the suburbs of McHenry County, where I hail from. And one of the guys at the broadcasting school says, hey, they might be hiring at this little AM station in on the North Shore. And I got the job quite easily, actually, just by breathing. And... that was a prerequisite. The only prerequisite, actually. At WEEF 1430 AM.
We're alive.
Yeah. So then I met this guy, Ivan, and then this other guy down the hall. And we did radio shows because the boss didn't care. And it was fun. And then we went our separate ways. One day we rode the mountain crest, and I went east and they went west. I took the law and wore a star, where they spread terror near and far. And then we had lunch, or breakfast or something, one Sunday, and I said, hey, why don't we do this? And we're all like, are we going to do it? Are we going to do it? And I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And everyone's all like, yay, we did it. So here we are.
So how long, so to be clear, when does the AM, there used to be a show on WEEF 1430 AM called the AM Mayhem. It was on Sunday mornings. And unless you were either at Max's Deli or in the parking lot, you probably didn't hear it. So when did you guys first start it? Because I didn't come in until much later.
I sat in Ivan's first show. It was March 10th, 1996.
Okay.
Chuck Norris's birthday.
Yep.
Chuck Norris's birthday. Okay.
Yep. Where it was called RPM or something. I don't know. Ivan changed the name of the show every week. I don't know.
Well... let me go ahead and fill that part of it in.
All right. You fill it in. Right. Grab that big old spackle and your trowel and go fill it in.
Okay. I came to WEF 1430 on a request from a mutual friend of me and Brett Perdue. And, hey, Ivan, Brett's looking for somebody to fill in on Sunday mornings. What time? 6 a.m. Oh. Okay, sure. Here's the catch. You don't get paid much, but you get to do whatever you want with the next 2 hours. I'm like, okay, cool. So I came in, I met up with Brett, and she kind of gave me the idea as to what to do with all of the brokered shows that were there, which were either on tape or on cassette, reel to reel. And then, on occasion, we would have live people come in. Okay, that's all dandy. So, on October 14th, 1995, the first show called Planet Music started, which that was my little music show. Just here I am, throwing records together and doing my little thing. I was involved with a record label for a while, and I was featuring some of their artists as well as all manner of different types of music. It was, it went from Planet Music to Roots and Influences, and then once I got out of that whole scene, it became RPM. And then once I got a hold of Mike, that's when the whole AM Mayhem thing started taking shape. And the AM Mayhem over the following years after that became this wacky, topical show that we pulled out all the stops. Anything went on the program. We really didn't have too much in the way of boundaries. And I started to work down the hall at WVVX, and that's where I met Jeff Stein. And from there, me and Jeff, we struck up a friendship, and I said, hey, why don't you come down and why don't you join us on Sunday morning? Which he did. And that's when the show started to develop. And during that time, we had a number of other people kind of anchor for a bit. We had Robert Panknin or Max Hammer, who did CD reviews, and we also had some other people that kind of came and went. But all in all, the core show was Jeff, Mike, and myself. Me and Mike, we would work off of each other as far as like what was topical. I was the music guy. He was the guy with the newspaper who got out the ads and everything, and then Jeff would come in and he'd bring in the over-the-top vibage of whatever was happening plus news of the weird. And it became this cohesive unit for a long time, up until the point where Mike left the station, I believe, was it 2000?
2001.
2001. And after he had left the station in 2001, then the AM Mayhem and much of the rest of it, kind of evolved into the North Shore Rhythm and Roll Show, which that's a whole nother thing. But Mike came back on occasion and sat in with me, and Jeff would call his part of it in with the news of the weird. And we continued it in that particular format for a long while. But with that, me coming from a background where I was doing other broadcasting before I came to WEEF, plus I had my own little at-home station growing up that I made myself, which that's how I got into the radio bug, because I had a next-door neighbor who was in World War II, and he was a radio telephone operator, and I used to cut his grass, and one day I was playing records, and he goes, hey, kid, why don't you come on in and, why don't we hang for a while? So he went ahead and he showed me all of the ideas as to what it was to put together my own broadcast station. And after he showed me, he said, okay, all you have to do is run this little copper wire, and you got an antenna. You keep it at the dead stations at the end of the AM dial. You can get out for roughly 8-9 miles as long as you log everything. It'll be all right. I was 13 then. So from that, I went on to host at other people's radio shows, came in through the back doors of radio schools, learned other techniques, and kind of everything under a shade tree pretty much from friends. I've learned a lot of my techniques for being on air. But then finally I got to WEEF, and from there, that's when the AM Mayhem show came to be, and that's how I met both Mike and Jeff.
Yeah,
and
we had a lot of great shows back then.
So
we did a lot of good shows. We did a lot of off the wall shows too. Remember, Jeff, about the show about nothing?
Oh God, yes. But here's the thing you're underselling.
Pardon me?
Here's the thing you're underselling. So I got out of college in probably about April or May of 1996. I did a short internship up in Lake Forest with some guys, and I could tell I wasn't going to go anywhere, and ended up getting a part-time job at WNDZ. And it was supposed to be in Portage, Indiana. However, the studios weren't in Portage, Indiana. The studios were actually in Highland Park, which was not far from my house. And I'd have to get up at some ungodly hour to play pretty much everything on what is now outdated, which is reel-to-reels, like polka and
Yeah.
and some sort of Christian show that God knows doesn't sound like any sort of Christian show. They're like, if you call us now, you get this book. What? And it wasn't like a Bible either. It was some sort of weird thing. And then there'd be all these foreign programs, but all of them weren't live. And
No.
while I'm there, there's WNDZ, which is in the studios that I'm at. But we also own another station called WVVX, which was an FM, and some people might remember it who are in the Chicago area. That's where Rebel Radio used to be back in the day. But it also did other programming during the day, like different broker programming and whatnot. So there was somebody running that station. There's somebody running WNDZ. And then I found out about this other station that was down the hall that I had never heard of either. Not that I had heard of WNDZ or WVVX, but some other station that was down the hall called WEEF. Now, for those who are not aware, WEEF, I don't know exactly the call letters are, but later on we basically called it WEEF, better known as We're Ethnic Every Fucking Day. Okay. So here's what would happen is I found, what would happen is all of us would have these tape programs where we didn't have anything to do. So you've got the guy from WVVX, you got a guy from WNDC, you got the guy from WEF, and we would sit around in the hallway just shooting the shit all the time, like talking about radio, talking about life, talking about girls, talking about anything you could think of. And sometimes it was better than anything was on the programming. And that's when Ivan goes, well, I got this radio show. And I'm like, what? Wait, you got a show? Yeah. I'm like, all right. So here's how this basically worked. I would be on the show, but I had to watch the clock all the time because, keep in mind, I'm working. So I'm supposed to be working. I'm supposed to be at WNDZ. I'm supposed to be watching everything going on at WNDZ. Instead, what I do is I basically set it up where it was like, if it was a half-hour show, I made sure to get back within a 5-minute grace period. If it was an hour show, okay, make sure you get back by about 55 or something along those lines. Okay? And then after that, I would run in and do some section on the show, and I'd be like, okay, I gotta go. As a matter of fact, I believe at one point you guys referred to me as Jeff from down the hall from that other station.
Yep.
Yes, because we couldn't say your call numbers.
Right. Well, the amusing part was it also allowed us to sit there and sit there and say, oh, gotta go put the other programming on. And literally walk out the door.
Right.
And that way. Really, in reality, I was on a radio show with these two gentlemen while I was supposed to be listening to either polka, Lithuanian, some sort of horrible Christian programming. And when I say horror, I want to be clear. I have nothing against religious programming. This is not religious programming. When you're telling me that God is coming to smite all the rest of us in the world who are heathens and whatnot, it's like, that's not religious programming.
Okay.
So, and if you call now and give us money, we'll send you a free set of Tupperware. And if you think I'm joking, I'm not.
Suspiciously, Jeff, if I may just interject,
yeah.
Suspiciously, this reminded me of a show that when I was working at VVX, where they would come in the evening, and you literally had to put your wallet from your back pocket into your front pocket because they came as a horde. There must have been about 20 of them. And all of them are on the phones, and they're all soliciting, they got the Bible, don't get me wrong, but they're busy soliciting funds for a book that didn't even exist. But, and people were busy calling in at this rate, and I just kept thinking to myself, why is this wrong in so many levels? So, but, and I kind of tipped off the management to that and found out that, yeah, indeed, that they were busy scamming, so... Yes, there was scamming folks before the internet. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
But
were they gypsies?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So gypsies. I have nothing against gypsies, but all I'm going to say is every gypsy show I've ever done in the history of my radio career, they show up to do a show and they bring like an army.
Yeah.
They bring like an army. They bring like 30 people. It's like, my favorite is, I was working over at another radio station. I won't say the call letters. It's it's 1 o'clock in the morning. There are 8-year-olds running around the studios.
Oh, yeah.
Right around the studio. I'm like, what in the hell? What is this kid? Where are these kids? Don't these kids have to go to bed? And like you said, everything. I mean, literally, I had to work it sometimes. I would fill in for somebody. The instructions were awesome. It's like, like a half hour ahead of time. The gypsies are coming. Bolt everything down.
Bolt the doors.
Everything. Do like batten down every hatch. It was like if it was there, the only thing that we couldn't move was the computer, and that would be obvious that it was missing. But if they could get away with it, they would.
Oh, if it wasn't nailed down, they were going to take it.
Yeah, they were going to take it.
I never had to deal with that.
Yeah, we did.
Well, I didn't have to deal with them. I didn't have to deal with them at NDZ or VBX, but future trips other places, the gypsies were quite the interesting entertainment on some level.
No, I have to say that they are a peculiar lot. You know, here the kids are being cute as they're talking to you, and then it's like you get the funny feeling that there are people hovering around behind you while the cute kid is busy talking to you.
Yeah, so they can steal more coffee grinds that they were like, what happened to all the coffee? Gone.
Well, yeah, because again, if it wasn't nailed down, they took off with it. Yeah. Speaking of funny episodes over at other stations, my favorite one was we used to have a Greek show, and she used to drop off her tapes at night. Okay, I was working at VBX for a while overnight for Rebel Radio. This was what I did all night. Okay, as soon as they broke away, I pushed one button on one cart. If it's too loud, you're too old. Rebel Radio.
Yeah.
And then do nothing for an hour. Well, it just so happens that one night the air conditioner broke down. It is hot as hell down in the studio. Hot as hell. So I'm breaking down into my shorts. But now, mind you, from the doorway, it looks like I'm sitting behind the console. It looks like I don't have a stitch of clothes on to start with me. Okay?
Uh-huh.
So here comes Vicky. And then she opens the door, and she sees me. And I go, oh, I'll take those for you. She goes, no. That's okay. I put them right here. I'm like, oh, my God. She's going to call the office, and she's going to tell them that I was not proper. Guess what? She called the office. I got confronted, and I told him, I says, well, look, if you were to have the air conditioning working in here, I wouldn't have had to, put myself down into my shorts. They go, your shorts? I said, yeah, my shorts. I was in my shorts. I had no shirt on, but I was in my shorts. Oh, well, that's not what you told us. I says, yeah, well, if you're sitting behind the console, of course I'm going to look like I got nothing on underneath. Really? So, yeah, that was one of the many different things that have happened in that station. And then, of course, the radio stations in that building, there were all kinds of shenanigans going on in that
Not just
building.
EVX.
I mean, not just at BVX and NDZ, but EEF, especially EEF, which was notorious for all kinds of things. We would come in, and one week the CD player would be missing. And then the following week, the CD player would be back, but then the cassette deck would be missing. And then once we come back, the CD and the cassette deck were there, but then the microphones were missing.
So, hold on a second. I want to make something clear to the audience that's listening. When we talk about groups of people, you need to understand, it may sound like we're insensitive. We're not. We're really not.
No, we're telling you like it is.
It's not even a telling you like it is. There were just certain groups, and it wasn't every ethnicity, and it wasn't every broker, but there were certain.
No. But because these brokers, like any radio people, they all want to be stars. They all had their way about them. Some of them were very cool. Some of them were with the old holier than thou, attitude towards things. Some of them, if you didn't do things in the way they wanted them done, they actually would call the bosses on you because they would say, well, why didn't my why didn't my commercial go on during this time? Or why didn't this happen? Or why did that happen? You know what I'm talking about, Mike. Remember Gino Mario Nuccio?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And they used to bring these tapes that were about 100 years old. I mean, the oxide is falling off of these
They're
things.
worn out reels.
Worn out completely. And their idea of production was to take and go over certain pieces of the old show with either new commercials or new announcements, but running pretty much all of the old stuff that was on it underneath.
Yeah.
Redubbing constantly over old reel to reel, and just the quality was just degrading, even for our little AM 1,000 watt station.
Yeah.
For millennial listeners, to make it clear, you couldn't just click delete and erase it and then just put a new piece in. No, you had to erase the entire thing, bulk erase the entire thing. However, sometimes they didn't want to bulk erase the entire thing because they wanted other aspects that they had already pre-recorded. So as a result, sometimes you would hear multiple layers of things on their audio. And by the way, just so people are clear, when we say broker and brokered radio, there's an element of broadcasting that people may not be aware of, which is there are stations out there where if you wanted to buy radio time, you could.
Right.
When the three of us started out, that's where we started in radio. We started at what was called a brokered station. And there was a cost to pay for a half an hour or an hour of time, or even I think 15 minutes. I think 15 minutes was a possibility, even depending on how much money you. Actually, what am I saying? If you had
the 15-minute things, we're going way back into the early part of the brokerage. Basically, it was like half hour and hour slots, because I remember when me and Robert Pankman did the Rock Suite at VBX. At that time, the studio was going through transition, so Gino Madelone was letting the hours go for $25.
Yep, I remember that.
So we were busy sucking up on all of that time because it was so cheap, and that's how we did Rock Suite. But that's another story. But anyway,
just so people are aware, that's how I did, and because I had friends of mine from high school who were like, "You're doing Bears post-game after Bears games on Sunday afternoon?" And, yeah, that was how I was doing it. I was on VVX, and I was doing the double overtime sports radio show with a few other people. And
I board opted some of your shows, right, remember?
Right, yeah. But as long as we're on this subject, worst broker radio experience ever.
Oh, boy.
Ivan, I'll let you go first.
My worst brokered radio show would have had to have been the Greek Archdiocese of Chicago.
The one time you fell asleep?
This is the time where, okay, here's a man who spoke like this. And look at that person, and he had these soothing ethnic tones going through my headset. All right? I was in the very early stages of, sleep deprivation, fouled up sleep apnea, call it. But so here it is. I was having trouble staying awake, and I was supposed to do an announcement. So I would go ahead and I would key my mic on just in case he would look over to me and have me do this announcement. Well, guess what? He's talking, and while he's talking, I'm slowly tilting my head to the mic, and then... 1,000 watts of big snoring power right splat over this man's words.
So the man tried to wake you.
So here's Chris Begot coming.
He's the program director for WEF.
For WEF. He's coming in and he's pelting me with papers, and he's the guy who has the show. He's pelting me with papers. He's trying very hard not to laugh, but, the whole thing was just so crazy, and he was so angry. You should see the anger that was on his face when I woke up and realized that, oh, my God, I had an open mic. I was snoring my ever-loving bazoozi off out there into the audience, and I was just like, oh, my gosh, I just totally screwed this man's show totally up. This is a religious show, and I'm busy snoring in the middle of this man's religious show. Needless to say, Chris called me in the office, and he looks at me and goes, you know, I had to give that show credit, but actually it was kind of worth it because he just starts laughing. He was just cracking up. That was the WKRP sensibility about Weef. Yeah. Because we had at one. I mean, Chris Begat was the program manager, and he tried to string everything together. Pretty much tried to make everything cohesive.
And, meanwhile, you had the owner of the station, a retired shoe salesman, who didn't give a crap about anything. The station was a tax write-off for him. He spent how many months? 2 months out of the year. He
would become this alter ego called Jesus Marimba, and he'd be gone for like 8 weeks out of the year. Anyway, you guys take over for a while, and I'm going on vacation. So basically, the station during that time became a literal free-for-all.
Yeah.
And there were times when brokers would just have us repeat the same old shows week after week. There were times when, of course, the shuffling of the equipment coming and going.
Because one of the board ops had a gambling problem.
Right. And
so he would constantly take stuff to the pawn shop.
Right, yeah. And not only he would also give him money for his habit and everything, for which we would walk in and smell as to why, that situation was happening. So it was just that type of thing. And like I said, again, it was a free-for-all. So it was like literally the inmates were let out loose in the asylum, and we just carried on as best as we could with what was presented at the time we did it. And it was nuts. I mean, we had moments where I was vacillating between VBX and EEF, and sometimes I would sleep at the station because it was like I worked the VBX shift, I go to EEF, and then I would just crawl on the floor and just, I'd go ahead and sleep on the floor, and then Mike in the morning would kick me.
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning, kick me. Hey, Ivan, time to get up.
I'd be like, 10 minutes.
On the air in 10 minutes, exactly. So it's just like poor Mike had to be subjected to my bodily odors and everything from the night before and everything else. So be just okay.
Studios.
It was terrible. Yeah, it was pretty bad. I'm so sorry about that. I feel bad.
Jeff, your worst brokered experience.
So Jeff, you.
Of them, this is probably one of the best stories I can tell. So WNDZ was in a moving phase, and we had moved down on South Michigan Avenue before we were to move over to the old Sun-Times building. And we were there for a small period of time. And it wasn't exactly, it wasn't exactly the nicest digs. First of all, to get up to the floor where we were on, you would have to unlock the floor that you needed to get on with the key to unlock the floor for the elevator.
Oh, I remember this story. Okay.
So you have to unlock you have to unlock your floor, be able to actually press the button to go up. Then there was almost like a screen door there that when you left you were supposed to lock because that would lock the facility. Okay? And the other part was there was a big metal door down on the main floor, and we didn't have a key for. Okay? But to give you some perspective, there were times in the wintertime when I would show up for work, it was really cold, and I would walk into the elevator, and there would be a homeless guy in the elevator because it was a place to sleep because it was warm.
Oh, my goodness.
And then he'd be like, oh, good morning. I'd be like, oh, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, he was nice and it was good, and I'd have to unlock everything and get to my floor, and he wouldn't bother on the floor or anything. So this was early on in our time when we were at this facility. And there were actually two stations there. There was WNDZ, which is the redheaded stepchild of the company at the time, and there was WYPA, which was 8:20 a.m., which was a personal achievement format that Douglas was working on that was supposed to be the new big it thing. And they had automated systems, and on the weekend they had brokered programming just like WNDZ did. So there was a brokered show, there was a producer board op by the name of Dave Jackson for that station, and then there was me in the mornings, depending on certain times of day. We would work the afternoons on Saturday, and on Sunday mornings we would work Sunday morning, and then we would get relieved. So on this particular occasion, on a Saturday afternoon, I decided I need to go down to go get something to eat. And when I went downstairs, I noticed one of the elevators was not working. And when I came, after getting what I needed to get and coming back, the other elevator was now not working. So I had no way to get upstairs back to the station because there's also this big metal door which doesn't open, and we don't have a key or a lock. We don't have a key or anything for it. Thankfully, I know that we have a toll-free 800 number, and I go over to a payphone because at the time, cell phones were not as prevalent. I mean, I had a big brick phone, but you didn't want to use it because you get charged a certain amount, and it was only supposed to be for emergencies, and I didn't charge it that much. But I called up, and eventually the person who was there at WYPA caught the phone, was able to come downstairs, and thankfully no problem on Saturday. But we both were it was very, very clear to both of us that this was going to be a problem on Sunday. So we called management, and at the time, management consisted of an individual by the name of Ed Dedier, who I believe is still out in Indiana. And at the time, he was our program director, but he really was more of an engineer. And management didn't really give a rat's ass about what happened on the weekends. They just wanted to collect their money and not be bothered about anything. And so we called them up. I called them up, and I said, hey, we got a problem. Neither elevator is working, and we don't have a key for this big door. And I don't know how we're going to get back up here on Sunday morning. And so Ed's idea is this. Before we leave, I am to prop open the metal door with a garbage can. I am then to write a big note that says that we need to have this door open because right now there's no way to get upstairs because we don't have elevator keys and we need to any way to get up with the elevator, and we should so that way we should leave that so that we can get onto our floor in the morning.
And there's no common stairway. There's no fire escape.
Oh, there's a fire escape, but it's outside.
Yeah.
And it's been pulled up. But there's a fire escape outside. Outside the window. But the point being, really, other than this stairwell that has this big metal door that they've locked unless you have a key, okay, there's no way up unless you've got the key to this door. So I go back, I tell Dave this, and he looks at me and he goes, do you think this is going to work? I said, I don't think this is going to work at all. But this is what they told me to do. And I called him back, and I'm like, Ed, I don't think this is going to work. This is a bad idea. And he's like, look, I'm in charge. This is what I want you to do. Okay. Now, WNDZ comes on before WIPA in the morning, so I'm there an hour in advance. And the best is because I'm supposed to get free airtime because I wanted to do some talk and some sports and whatnot. And it was a good time for that when he did turn on the station. I get there, and the trash can is no longer in the door. And the note is not there. And I'm thinking, well, at least, hopefully, the elevators are working. No. The elevators are not working. So now I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And thank God, at the time that this all happened, we still had they still owned WVVX because WVVX was a 24-hour radio station because I didn't have any of the phone numbers for management. at all. Any of the personal numbers for management. There was just no need or no reason to have them. So, and I have limited juice on my giant Zach Morris brick phone. Okay? Because keep in mind, this is like, what is it, like 98 or something like that, I think. But anyway.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Somewhere around like 1998. So I have my giant Zach Morris brick phone, and I call up VVX, and I can't even remember who it was. And they're half asleep because it's overnight. I'm like, look, you need to call this person, this person, this person. And I will call you back in like 20 minutes. So I'm sitting there. I'm doing all this. I'm making these phone calls. About an hour goes by, and Dave shows up. And he looks at me because I'm sitting on the stairwell of the L platform. And he looks at me and he goes, oh, no. I said, oh, yeah. And he looks at me and he goes, you got to be kidding me. I said, nope. And the first thing we look at, of course, is the fire escape that Mike mentions, and we're like, I'm not going up that thing. No way. We don't get paid enough. No way in hell. The only good news was WYPA was automated, so at least there, some of the morning stuff was getting run in the commercials. However, they would soon have brokered shows just like I would, except mine were all on tape. Theirs, live people. So we're sitting outside, and we're trying to fix this and talk to all these people, and we start to get the different shows showing up to come. And they're all freaking out going, hey, we're supposed to be on the air. Yeah, I know. At one point, I think we went out to go get coffee and donuts. We got brokers who are talking about they're going to climb the stair, they're going to climb the fire escape, and they're going to climb up there. Actually, I know who it was. It was that psychic. He was a big-time psychic. He was on the station, and he had been on other shows across the city, and was a big-time guy. A guy by the name of Joe Who. Okay?
Okay, yeah. For some reason, yeah, I kind of remember that.
Yeah, so Joe Who's talking about he's going to do this stuff, and we're all like, Dave and I are just looking at each other like, Fast forward so we're sitting there as shows are coming and going. And the best is, I'm talking to our management on the phone, and they're just like livid. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? I told you this could happen, and they're all mad about it. The guy didn't show up with the key. This gentleman shows up, nonchalantly walks in with the key at like 10:30 in the morning. We have now missed about anywhere from 4.5 to 5.5 hours of programming, and I'm immediately running in there, and I run into my studio. There's phone lines lit up because it's all the people who are mad because their program's not airing and there's nothing on the air. And I'm like, I'm like, yes, I'm aware and all this stuff. The funny part is, literally, I get there. I had Monday off. I walk in Tuesday. I am literally handed a key to that big door. But
how they done that in the first place?
Well, and it was funny you say that because I remember specifically when I first got there, I said, "Don't you think we need a key for this door?" "Oh no, we don't need a key. You don't need a key." I'm like, "Are you sure?" And like I said, the best is the entire time I'm literally sitting there and I'm like, "This is the worst idea ever." And it was funny because I said to the guy when he came and he showed up, I go, "Well, then you saw the note." And he's like, "Yeah, I don't give a shit about your note. I have to protect the building." "Yeah, I kicked the garbage can out and pulled down the note. I don't care." And he's right, but it was funny because
well, he was just doing his job. So
well, and the best is we look like amateur hour. And keep in mind, WYPA at the time, they were trying to be a major player in the market, and it's like,
oh yeah, sure
you're on the air because you can't get upstairs because it's locked. It's one thing if your transmitter goes down or something like this, and you know this story got around to people. You know,
it certainly did.
I remember. And it's funny because there's only a couple people who know it, but you know this story got around. But that is probably my worst experience. As much as it was not a bad experience for me, it probably is the worst. How about you, Mike?
Excuse me. Okay, so all right, now it's the obvious. What was yours, Mike?
Well, I was just a Sunday guy. You know, I had a full-time job, which I still have to this day, and this radio thing was just gas money for me. So Sundays were usually not very exciting, usually pretty dull. But one particular Saturday, it snowed. It was the big blizzard of 99, just after New Year's 1999, or New Year's Day 1999. It was a big snowstorm. And I live about an hour away from the radio station. And I called Chris, and I let him know I'll be there. I got a good car. Fortunately, I was able to follow a plow all the way in. And this is all like on the North Shore. And roads are, a lot of the main roads, they're all plowed. And it wasn't bad. I was able to follow a plow all the way in. I got into the station, and of course, Ivan was supposed to be in for the morning shift. That's how it worked. I was scheduled at 11:30, or Ivan always did the mornings. But we just came in at the same time in the morning because we could do the morning show. But of course, Ivan wasn't able to get in because his van was immobile because of the snow. So I got in, and there's nobody. Of course, no one can get anywhere because of the snow, and all the roads haven't been plowed yet. And the one time I have to board op for, I think maybe like in all the years I was at WEEF, I did about 3 live shows for Paul Ciminello, an Italian broker.
Oh yeah.
And he had a cart, one of the carts, which looks like an 8-track tape for all you young people. It's a magnetic tape with just a loop tape. Looked like an 8-track, but it was just a commercial for a snow removal service that we played during Paul's show. But of course, you can't call the number because everyone's calling him to want to get their driveway cleared off. So no one was in. No, Paul made it though. But I was the king of my castle. That was the one day I was just the loneliest DJ at the WEEF that day. It wasn't a bad day. I didn't really have any bad brokers. There were times especially before Howard Leviton bought the station from WEF, it was Stan and Myra Winston who owned the station. And Myra, when they were short on board ops, before Ivan got hired, there was one guy who was constantly breaking chairs because of his size. But the one time he didn't make it, so they called me in, and I got there early enough where Myra had put Post-it notes on every single dial pot on that whole board.
I remember the Post-it notes, yeah.
Myra was freaky about that. But it was Tony Napoli's show, and Tony was pretty easygoing. He was one of the easier ones.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't really have one really bad one. I have several small ones, like the blizzard we had in '99, and of course all the times that I showed up and Ivan's.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Was the
blizzard? That was late.
Mike, was that blizzard in '99? Is that the one that happened right after New Year's?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's a good one. So I drive down Saturday morning. Again, this is when I'm working at WNDZ, and we're still. Oh, I take it back. We're in the Sun Times building finally now. Okay. So that morning, I have the shift on Saturday morning, and I drive down there, and literally to get downtown, I am literally following a salt truck, a plow salt truck.
That's what I did to get in.
Literally, I'm right behind it in the express lanes on the Kennedy. Okay? We're following it on the Kennedy. I get down there, and there's supposed to be people. So I get down there, and I'm running the shows. And as time is going on, I'm beginning to notice a trend, which is anybody who was supposed to be live is calling me up to tell me that they're going to be either on tape or put me on the phone today. Okay?
Oh, boy.
I get a call from, ironically, Dave Jackson, who I mentioned earlier in this, and he's like, yeah, I'll be there. I'm probably going to be a little bit late. No, Dave never gets in that day. Dave never shows up. And so I end up having to work the entire Saturday, which was interesting, and here's why. We had one show at 1 o'clock, and we had a guy by the name of Garfield Major. And he was a prominent activist, I believe, Southside at the time, and he had a popular show, I think, on WVON at the time, too. So he knew a lot of different people, and he was supposed to be in that day. Well, he didn't show up, but his guest did. Take a while, guess who his guest was?
Who?
Congressman Danny Davis.
Ah.
So, I'm literally doing the Garfield Major Show. It's me playing wingman for a United States congressman talking about stuff on the radio.
Wow.
I swear to God, it was the funniest thing ever. I'm like, wait, you're Danny Davis. Yeah, I am. Sweet. He's like, where's Garfield? I don't know. Next thing I know, I'm doing a show and he's like, this guy, he's our producer. He's wonderful. I'm like, oh, this is good. I'm good. But the best is, I got stuck downtown. So I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to get stuck in the Sign Times building. I was able to, at the last minute, find a hotel room that they were willing to work out a deal with me over at the House of Blues Hotel, at the now defunct House of Blues Hotel, which they were more than willing to work a deal with me because obviously I was stuck down there. What they didn't tell me was there was no place that was open to get food, so they socked it to me on the food bill. But that room was incredible. It was funny because I was like, I am not sleeping overnight in the station because I know how this is going to go. Someone's going to sit there and go, well, Jeff's still probably in the station, so he can stay for Sunday morning too. I'm like, no, we're not playing that game.
My gosh, getting down to the radio station. There was one year I had come on the train from the city, okay, because there was a metro stop called Braeside, which of course stopped on Lake Street in Highland Park. So I'm coming back from a party and everything like that, and I get off the train and I go walking. Just as I get across the intersection, I slip and I fall. So I'm thinking, okay, I sprained my ankle, and there was no taxi, there was no nothing at that time of night in the suburbs. No way.
Nope.
So here it is. I'm limping along. Here's, Highland Park's finest, and I'm waving them down, and I'm like, hey, can you help me? And I don't know, they probably thought I was like some kind of drunk or something just coming home from the party. Great. So from Braeside to Skokie Valley Road had to have been at least roughly 2.5, maybe 3 miles. And I'm walking. So I get into the station, barely by the skin of my teeth, and I'm in the roll chair, and I'm running the whole show New Year's Day. The whole day. I was in this chair, rolling from one section to the other, loading tapes and sitting down, loading tapes, sitting down, working the board, sitting down. So by the end of the day, I'm cross-eyed because I'm in so much pain. Well, I give a call to my mom, and then my brother answers the phone, and then both of them came down to get me. My mom took one look at my leg and says, Ivan, you broke your leg. I'm like, what? They took me down to the emergency room. Mind you, I worked the whole day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's 12 hours, okay?
You broke your ankle?
And I broke my leg in 2 places.
Wow.
Jeez.
So
I think it was the first time, well, to interject here, that was the first time I finally met you. You were wearing a cast.
Yeah. And so here it is, I go into the emergency room, doctor takes one look, goes, okay, and I had just bought these blue jeans, black jeans actually, and they cut them right up the side, just bought these pants, not even a few hours, not even a day old, cut right up the leg, opened up, the leg is just all swollen and bruised and ugly, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and so then for about 8-9 weeks I was walking around, first with a full leg cast, then with a half cast, and then it was just like trying to get around to the station was nothing short of an epic situation for me at the time. But yeah, I mean, but the people on New Year's Day had no idea. Their shows ran right on schedule. Everything came together. Everything was fine, and because it was New Year's Day, nobody came in. So I was alone.
No one was live that day. No one was live that day.
No one was live that day. I was alone the whole day.
Yeah.
So I mean, here it is. My leg's broke. I'm starving, and everything. So of some of the more crazy situations that happen at the station, that was one that kind of stands out. I mean, I have others.
The only other thing for me was the time I had to go get Pat Capriotti his wallet back.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
One of the Italian brokers, Pat Capriotti, I think he's still on the air these days. He had an afternoon show, and he was going to a wedding, but he was in studio that afternoon for like an hour, and then he had to go to a wedding party or something that night. But he left his wallet in Studio B. So he just left, and I was going to jump into Studio B because that's where I like to play my music. When the other programming is on the air, I just go into Studio B and I just play my music because I like the sound in there. I like that, or I like the CD player or something. Well, I found his wallet, and then I called his number that's on the directory in the station. And he says he's on his way to a wedding. Can you meet me in the parking lot of Woodfield Mall at, say, like 9:30 or something like that? So the broadcast day ends, and I drive home. And then he calls me, or is at the time or whatever, I said, okay, it's about 8:30, I gotta go. Went down to the parking lot at Woodfield Mall, and we find him. He's in front of one of the Sears or something like that. And I figure, okay, well, he'll probably just give me like maybe some $20 or something to help me with gas or something. I'd be fine with just $10 or something. He gives me a bottle of wine or something, or a bottle of champagne that he got for free from the wedding. That was my prize for giving him back his wallet.
What a cheap dude.
So I drive home and I got a speeding ticket.
Oh man.
So that's probably my worst brokered experience right there. Like I said, Sundays were pretty dull for me. I was usually just play a tape and go. Sometimes I'd go over to Barnes & Noble. I'd buy a magazine or something, or buy a book or something, come back and read or whatever, and then play my own music. And sometimes my music would bleed over into the broadcast, and then I'd go, and I had to shut it off real quick. Things are pretty uneventful for me. And like I said, just the occasional missing piece of hardware due to a certain board op who used to work at our station who he would hit the pawn shop and then go hit his dealer.
Yep, either he hit his dealer or he go to his bookie. It's just that type of thing.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to say his name, Chip. Chip, you son of a bitch.
Mr. Chip.
And then came the day I decided to clean the station.
I knew this was coming.
Okay, all right. This is probably my favorite story. It's like one day, the station, and Chip, this asshole Chip, was so immature, just writing on the walls. Wrote on the walls. Who does that? It's like a kid's clubhouse. So anyway.
Well, it's kind of like a kid's clubhouse.
This kid, well, I mean, you thought the owner of the station took nothing seriously. This guy Chip, this was Pee-wee's Playhouse to him. So anyway, so one day I decided, you know what, I'm gonna get a gallon of paint. I said, Ivan, go get here's $30. Go to the Ace Hardware down the hall or down the street. Get a gallon of paint and some brushes. I'm gonna paint this studio. So I did that afternoon. That afternoon, I put a coat of paint over everything. Just painted over all his graffiti, all his silly drawings and doodles he'd have right on the walls. The parts of the walls that weren't. Some of the walls were carpeted because of the soundproofing. Because we're a professional radio station, we just put carpet on the walls. But other parts that just had drywall that he just, he'd write on because he could, because he was just an idiot. So, and then just take newspaper clippings and just tape it to the wall and just tore it all down. The next day, you thought the station burned to the ground. It didn't. The station looked like a legitimate place of business. But Chip didn't like that, not one bit. He called everyone under the sun, trying to drive a wedge between me and everybody else at that station. I remember Chris Bagot called me that Monday saying, Mike, what did you do, man? I said, I cleaned the station. But
wasn't it because we had a tour of Boy Scouts come through there?
Yeah, somebody that did like a field trip with some Cub Scouts or something. And he had written and Chip's got profanities written all over the walls, and I was embarrassed to have these moms and these little kids see how a real radio station works, instead to look at this shithole. So I cleaned it, and I got hell for it from the management.
How dare
You'd think you'd get mad for doing the opposite.
No.
But no, I didn't filthy this station up. I cleaned it.
Yeah,
And Chip did not like
Chip
that.
just went off the deep end.
Yeah.
Went off the deep end. And
I had
the
a
thing about
box
it was,
with some carts and some personal belongings. He took it in the parking lot and burned it.
well,
Needless to say, but one day I got a full-time, my full-time job went 6 days a week, and I wasn't going to work 7 days a week again. I did that for 2 years. When I first started at the Weef, I was Monday through Saturday at my full-time job, and Sunday I was at the Weef. I did it for 2 years. I worked 7 days a week for 2 years straight, and I decided I'm not going to do that again. When I got promoted at my paying job, so in 2001 I quit, and I left my keys in an envelope, which the management never received because it probably either got lifted by Chip or the maid. But it doesn't matter. Those were fun times. We had a lot of crazy adventures, but strange times.
It's funny. This has turned into the
Yeah.
radio show. But I mean, it's funny because you only did this 1 day a week, Mike. You gotta understand, with Ivan and I, this kind of stuff. I mean, this was stuff. There's stuff that happened all the time. I mean, there was all.
Oh my God.
Like, I remember, and the worst part is, sometimes I admit, sometimes I got bored. I mean, there would be things that I would do where literally I'd do them because I was bored. Like, I can't remember, there was one time I think I'm sitting in hanging out with Ivan, and I can't remember whose show it was, but somebody had made you really, really mad, Ivan. And what I remember is, you would purposely speed up and slow down the show. And
Okay, yes. I remember that.
You would wait for the guy to call up, and you would go, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't hear anything.
Oh, that was Gina Maria Nuccio because.
And then the best is you'd wait about 5 minutes, and then you'd either make it really, really slow again, or, really fast, or you would take the tape and you would pluck it so it would have like a wow in the middle of it. And it was like I was going nuts that day.
Sir.
Like, keep calling minutes, and I couldn't stop laughing because Ivan doing it. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
He called me up. What's going on over there? Why is my tape not working right? I go, I don't know.
There was something that he did that pissed you off. That's why this whole thing started. Oh, I know what it was. It was this stupid Rotten Theater thing, the Italian Rotten Theater, and it was on that reel-to-reel. Now, you gotta understand, this reel-to-reel, okay, tape is supposed to be either brown or black. This was green.
It was
okay? And let's be clear, when it's green, that means it's filthy, disgusting, and old.
It's moldy.
It's like a dysentery from that thing. Okay? But,
oh my gosh.
But yeah, I mean, and then there was the one guy, I can't remember. There was the one guy from the Lithuanian show who would have an intro before his intro of his show, where literally he'd be like, good morning, and he'd tell us all this stuff, and it's like, Jiminy Christmas, man, why don't you just start your show so I can just cue it correctly? But the best is, did I tell you about the time I got a chair thrown at me?
Oh, I remember that time you told me about that.
Yeah, Mike, I got a chair thrown at me.
You weren't in a wrestling ring, were you?
No. So one of you
Foreign object in the ring.
So at a broker radio station, sometimes it's a little different because, yeah, you do producing, but at the same time, you also are kind of like the bag man, okay? So what happens is, like, on the program form, it will tell you whether or not you need to collect money from somebody, or if somebody owes money. And if they owe money, they're not allowed to be on, whether they're not allowed to be on the air or not, they'll tell you. And on this particular occasion, this guy owed quite a bit of money, and they were like, oh, he needs to at least pay for his show today to be on the air. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, fine. And so the guy comes in, and I'm like, okay, dude, I need money. And he's like, well, I don't really have it. I'm like, dude, I can't put you on if I don't have money. I said,
oh my gosh, I remember this. Yeah.
I can't put you on unless you have money. And he's like, well, no, you need to call them. I'm like, okay, they don't want to take your phone call. They don't even want to talk to you. I'm telling you, you need to give me money. I'm like, here, in the meantime, at least so your listeners don't feel like something weird's going on, give me a CD and we'll at least track it so at least there's music going that sounds like what you have, what sounds like something from you. Okay? And he's like, oh, okay. So I call and he's like, he keeps insisting I got to call. And I know where this is going because nobody wants to take this phone call and nobody wants to deal with it. So I call up, they're like, why are you even calling us? I'm like, because he's insisted that I call you and he's you know, in fairness, he's the customer. And they're like, no, he's got to pay you. So we're still like on South Michigan, and there are these wood chairs, and the guy grabs a wood chair and literally throws it across the room. And I'm like, look at him going, you know, that was really dumb. If you break that, you got to pay for it. And he looks at me. And he's all mad and he's all exasperated. And here's the best part. After he's done this for about we're doing this for about 15, 20 minutes. His show was only an hour. Okay? We're doing this for 15, 20 minutes. He suddenly pulls out a check. But the check had somebody else's name on it. So he scratches out the name, puts the radio station name, puts the amount on, and then gives it to me and then starts his show. And I'm looking at him going, you mean to tell me you did this the whole time and you had a check? And the best is, they found out later that this guy threw something and they were pissed. They're like, you mean to tell me he threw stuff in the stage? I'm like, yeah, he did. But yeah, there's some crazy stuff. Like, I don't think I even told Ivan this. My last day for WNDZ, oh my God. Every broker brought me alcohol. And when I say every broker brought me alcohol, we're not talking like a glass. We're talking like a bottle. I had enough to basically fill my liquor cabinet for like a year. And the best is, most of them knew what I drank, so I had at least 3 bottles of Jack Daniels. Okay? I walked out with 2. I literally was 3 sheets to the wind when I left. And the best is, it's like, so what do you want me to do when I'm done for the day? They're like, oh, just leave the key on the board. I'm like, so you just want me to leave the key on the board and leave? Yeah. Okay. I'm like sitting there, I'm like, I have nothing to lose. I could keep your station on for like another 8 hours and do whatever the hell I wanted to. I'm half drunk and I'm sitting there going, I could do it. I mean, I'm in my mid-20s. I'm dumb enough to do something like that. But yeah, it's some of that stuff is crazy. I'm trying to think of.
I remember one time, it was a simple thing. Now, I don't know if Mike, you remember a cat named Jerome Binder?
Oh shit!
I've only heard legend of him because he worked at the station down the hall. Okay, but Jerome was legendary for his idiocy.
Okay, so here's Jerome Binder.
Wait, we need to make it clear. We need to make something clear, Ivan. Jerome's biggest claim to fame was he was an intern at WLS once.
So here's what's happening. Okay? That week I said, Jerome, in the time slot allotted for this particular thing, can you do me a favor and run this blues tape? It was a 90-minute tape, right? Okay. So I'm at home, and I'm waiting, I'm listening, it's very fuzzy where I'm at, but I can still hear some of it. Uh-huh. So I'm waiting for the show to go on, and then after the ID, then there's like this silence, and then the tape goes in, but it doesn't go in very well. In fact, the tape sounds like it's being chewed up by the machine. So I panic. I jump in my car. You remember my car, Mike. I jump in my car, and I'm going to the radio station. I must have been doing 65 miles an hour. I'm tearing down there because I'm like, what in the blazes is going on here? So I get down to the station. It's dark. Everything is, turned off and everything. The only thing that's going is the lights from the soundboard and the tape deck. And the tape deck and no Jerome. So I said, okay. So I went ahead. I sat down. I stopped the tape while it was on the air. Looked at it, fixed it up, dropped the tape back in, started it again. You would have thought that Jerome would have come down wondering why the tape was off the air, right? Nope. So here it is. I'm sitting there the whole time. About 5 minutes before the tape was over, here comes Jerome in a stupor. And I'm sitting there. And he looked at me like he had seen a deer like he was a deer in headlights. And I looked I go, Jerome? He just said, well, I was thirsty. So I went across the street, and I guess I might have stayed a bit long. I said, you realize this tape was not running right for at least 45 minutes. What do you mean? That means you weren't listening. So you mean you popped the tape in, decided to get yourself into a drunk, come back here before anybody noticed. Well, I noticed. I went, well, we're friends. We don't need to make this a thing, do we? I said, not at $25 for the hour, I'm not making it. I guess I'm making it. So, yeah. So, one of Jerome's famous things, the last act of defiance with Jerome Bender was when we went into transition from WVBX to WXXY. Yes, Heart and Soul Radio, the short end of a real short stick.
Yeah.
And what happened was the day that we were going to inaugurate the opening of WXXY, the programming team, which was made up of a program director whose only other show was in Canada and was a brokerage show, okay? A guy by the name of Kevin, his name was Kevin Harvey, Kevin Q. Harvey, remember? Okay, yeah. And then, of course, a voice guy by the name of Harry Legg. That was his name. He was from J-Corps. Hi, everybody. How you doing? I am Harry Legg. You're listening to WVBX 103.1 Heart and Soul. I mean, a real Puker FM guy. So, all Jerome had to do was play the first three records, the first three songs, and then to go into the automated programming to start off VBX. What does Jerome do? Jerome goes ahead, drops a song that was not part of the program, totally out of format with what was being played, and to the scowl of the program director who went and said, what in the f*** are you doing? To Jerome's utter terror and everything like that. And then the following morning, yeah, I was on my way to take a part out to Coal City, Illinois. When I came back, she told me, Ivan, you're going to have to pick up the rest of the day today because Jerome is no longer with us. She fired him on the spot just for this. That was like his last major screw-up folly. I mean, she just didn't tell the
good Jerome story.
Pardon me?
You didn't even tell the good Jerome story.
Which good Jerome story was this? There's so many of them.
You're half dead. You're half dead because you've worked like 36 out of the last 48 hours.
Oh, my goodness.
Wait, if you don't remember, I'll tell it. Which is
No. You go ahead, Jeff.
Ivan's half dead because he's been basically running shifts for almost practically 2 days. And he needs something to eat, and Jerome shows up, and Jerome wants something to eat. Now, Jerome is well-rested, and he's fine. And Jerome says to Ivan, oh, well, I'll give you some money, and you can go pick up the stuff. And I'm about to leave, and I'm watching this, and I'm like, Ivan is in no condition to drive. He looks like he's about to fall asleep. And I said to Jerome, I'm like, dude, he looks like he's about to fall asleep. Maybe you should go get it. Oh, no, I have to stay. I'm like, all right, Ivan, I'll come with you. We'll go get the food. I don't want you getting in any trouble. So we drive over there. We end up going to Fuddruckers, okay, because it was, at the time, Fuddruckers was right down the street.
Right down the street, yep.
It's right down the street, yep.
So it wasn't right down, it was right down the street. It was over by Skokie Valley Road, not where it is now in Northport. But, so we decide we're both kind of annoyed with Jerome. So we decided that it was time for Jerome to understand that sometimes it's not, that he wasn't very nice. So Jerome insisted that he wanted ketchup for his French fries. So we did give him ketchup. However, what he didn't know is we laced it with red pepper flakes, jalapeno juice, Tabasco, habanero sauce, and I can't remember whatever the hell else it was. And then we made sure to swirl it together with ketchup so that there was no way that he could tell. And I wasn't staying because I needed to go home, but I dropped Ivan off and I'm like, dude, you gotta tell me what the hell happens. You gotta tell me what happens. So Ivan calls me back about 2 hours later. And he's laughing like he's laughing right now. He's like, yeah. He takes a fry. Jerome takes a fry, and he takes a big dollop of this ketchup. And he eats it. And he's sitting there for a couple seconds, and then it's like the cartoon character, where like the smoke comes out of his ears, the head comes flying off, the eyes come bulging out of his head. It runs down the hall, and I think you said he was in the bathroom for over an hour.
An hour in the bathroom trying to water himself down.
And he was like, so he basically like was like dead. But yeah, I thought you were going to talk about that with Jerome. Jerome was one of those people where he'd go across the street for half of his shift and go get drunk and not be paying attention to anything. And then and then he was the guy who was always talking about how because he used to sit there and want to go off and not do his actual job, he'd sit there and kept writing these big, long memos to our program director about how we needed to get a VCR so that we could put everything on one VCR tape and run it as a long play thing so we could run 6 hours of programming on it. And everybody was like, dude, no, you can't do that. He's like, we're like, no, you can't do that. What the hell?
Yeah, and this was the 90s, the late 90s, where there weren't any DVD players yet. Everything had to be on tape, like VHS tape.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know.
See, the only time that was done was if we were monitoring air checks. Mm-hmm. And that was the only time that was done at certain stations. We didn't do it at ours, but certain stations they would do that.
This is actually a good one, Ivan. So when I was at WSBC, I'm at WSBC, and it was funny because that was another cluster of stations where they had multiple stations. And ironically, at one point, they had bought WNDZ, and they had bought 820 AM. So it was funny because they had 1240, 1470, they had 850, they had, and they still do, by the way, they have 820, they have 750. So they've got about 5 stations. And by the way, they have the progressive station too, obviously. Mm-hmm. But there was a guy over there. There's a buddy of mine by the name who was board hopping, and we had this Irish show on, and everybody was always like, whatever you do, you have to have this guy on delay. And he's like, and it was funny because he was doing this. Me and the fellow board operator, a guy by the name of Josh Fox, we're sitting there talking about it, and he's like, this guy's doing a live show from a pub, and he's like, and literally my buddy Josh is sitting there going, yeah, you never know when he's going to say something that we need to bleep, and he literally at that moment the guy goes, and literally I watched Josh hit the button. He's like, boy, just like that, see? Like,
we didn't have such things over at Weave. I mean, basically, if something got passed off, it flew, and it did quite a bit.
My favorite was I can't remember what station I was at where they said they had translators. I'm like, translators?
Mm-hmm.
Translators? What do you mean translators? I don't think I've ever been to a station where they had translators for the foreign. You don't even know what the hell they're saying half the time.
Yeah, the weekend programming at Weave was made up of Assyrians and I think Iranians and all matter of stuff, and they're sitting there, full of echo because everything was full of echo over the weekend.
No, they like the echo.
They love the echo. By the way, I found that echo pedal today.
Oh no!
I have the actual Bill Partikized echo pedal from the station.
Oh, plug it into your phone.
Yeah, I can go ahead and talk like this everywhere, word.
There's an app for that.
No, we don't need that.
But anyway,
here's what's happening. What's crazy about the Assyrians was when they show up in like that, like a didn't they pretty much show up in like a Back to the Future 1985 Volkswagen bus?
Yes.
I mean, that was the crazy part. It was like they, you sit there and it's like you don't want to generalize, and then they roll up in this freaking VW bus.
Yeah.
And they all come pouring out, and
they
it's
look like the Libyans that Doc Brown stole the plutonium from.
Exactly. You're right out of Back to the Future. Yep.
Yeah.
And the worst part is that it's like you don't want to stereotype, and yet you're sitting there watching this, and it's like 30 people came out of that van. I don't think that thing could fit 30 people. How do they do that?
Well, it was just like the half school bus with the Mushroom Head Experience from Indiana when I had to show Roots and Influences. They turned the station into a mini Woodstock. You should have seen it. We had rugs. There was hemp stuff everywhere, and there must have been about 6 or 7 members of the band in there. And put it this way, the air was thick with a fragrance of nothing but weed everywhere, and it was just like I was sitting there trying to do this radio show, and everybody's just piping away. That happened a lot during the time. When we were doing Roots and Influences. Remember, Mike, when you were there for what was it? Doggone,
Quit Your Bitchin'.
Oh, Quit Your Bitchin', right? And yeah. I mean, bitch. By the way, it aged well, man. That CD, actually, Yeah. I actually played that out one day over at the record shop.
You did some local bands. So my favorite though was a band called Vic Vacuum and the Attachments.
Oh yeah, and then they had the flip 7-inch with the Ouija boards.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Big Vacuum and the Attachments. They were great.
I just like the name of the band. That's all.
And,
so we had many wacky, crazy adventures in our radio days, and we appreciate you listening for our group therapy session here as we reminisce about our AM and FM days.
Wait, and Mike, here's the best. You'll get a kick out of this. So I'm working on possibly something for a storytelling event, which is technically for Gay Pride. So I decided I wanted to talk about my time being the producer for Lesbi Gay Radio.
Yeah, I remember Lesbi Gay Radio.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ivan. Are we interrupting your dinner?
No. I'm good. I'm tabbing little bites here, but I'm okay.
Okay.
You want to know why? Because he's still jealous for my food porn from earlier today.
Yes, exactly.
What was that anyway? What meal was that anyway?
Okay, so what it was is that I'm on the highway with Jules. We're coming back from Indiana. So, I'm trying to keep my mind off of the situation happening around me, the rain and everything. So I'm like, oh, wow, cool, so I'm filming, for Facebook and junk. So I go back and I start looking, and here's this post from Jeff, and he goes, 30-minute meal? No, more like an hour. And he shows this beautiful picture of all this wonderful food, and he goes in to start, describing, and I'm sitting here, my mouth is watering because I haven't eaten anything and everything. So I post up to Jeff saying, you seduced me with this food porn, and you don't even invite me over. Because Jeff was. I
didn't really give a rat's ass at that moment. You gotta understand. So he brings home. My mom brings home this kit, and she's like, "Here, it's supposed to be everything's in it, and you don't have to do anything. You just have to follow the instructions, right?" It says on there that it takes 10 minutes to prep, and you'll be done in 30 minutes. And I take one look at the instructions, and I'm like, there is no way in hell I'm going to be done with this by Sunday. Okay? it's here, take this here, chop this here, do this there. I swear to God, I thought I was on like an episode of Iron Chef or something. It's like, quick, preheat this oven. Oh my God, I gotta put this on. Oh, I gotta check this, I gotta check that. I'm like running around the kitchen. I'm like, oh, I don't even have a sous chef. What the hell? So, basically the whole thing took me, there's no way I got done in a half an hour. None whatsoever. Okay, I had to chop garlic. I had to chop up the basil. And of course, I don't have it's like, oh, use your cutting board. What cutting board? I don't have a cutting board. And then they're like, oh, you need to have olive oil. You didn't tell me I needed olive oil. I'm like, okay, I got this spray olive oil stuff. That'll work. Okay. And then they're like, you need salt and pepper. You need salt and pepper. I'm like, good thing I got those salt and pepper packets from Taco Bell the other day. God. Okay. I'm like, I gotta chop all this up, and then, so they've got all this stuff, and then it's like, they give me the green beans, but the green beans have all those crusty looking ends on them, so I gotta pick them all off, and there's not like a couple of green beans, no, there's gotta be like 30 green beans, and I'm like, doing this, and I'm like, and the oven's preheated, and I'm not sure I got this other thing right, and then I gotta put something up, and then, okay, they give me some sort of like grain, which it was really good, don't get me wrong, but it's like, okay, now you gotta boil this pot. I'm like, okay, I gotta boil this pot, I gotta preheat this oven, and then later, and then to top it off, I need to do an entire pot with these tomatoes with this sauce that I'm later gonna put this grain into, and I'm like, what am I, Christmas? What am I, a freaking short order to cook? So, in the end, I finished it out, and it was funny because my mom's like, it's wonderful. I'm like, I don't care how wonderful it is. There's no way I'm doing this again. She's like, ew. She's like, no, you're not going to say that when you eat it. I'm like, no, I think I am. So I made a salmon with it's a Parmesan mayo basil pine nut covering, topping. And then I did this farro type grain that I then cooked into a cherry tomato reduction sauce that had Parmesan cheese, tomato, obviously tomato, salt, pepper, and then I did some garlic green beans with it. So that's what I posted to Facebook. And no offense, Ivan, I don't care. I was proud because after that took 60 minutes, I was like dead. I'm like, I don't want to.
Dude, I wasn't busting your chops because
I know you weren't.
You made it. I was busting your chops because I'm like, dang, that looks good. I would like some of that.
I know you did. That's why I was sitting there. I'm like, screw you. I'm not making another one of those. That was great. That was nuts. That took forever. I'm like, and the worst part is, I'm hungry, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like,
you're making yourself crazy.
Why I just make something and eat it? Why is this? And the best thing, like, that was wonderful. They have different versions. I'm going to get another one tomorrow. I'm like, no!
No!
She's like, no, I won't get the same one. I'll get a different one. What makes you think that's any faster? This could be even harder. Somehow I ended up on Chopped. It's like, what the hell happened? Oh, God.
Oh, that's funny.
Chef Jeff.
Yeah, well, in fairness, I have got...
Jeff, that could be a thing. That could be a thing, Mike. We could have Chef Jeff, go live on our show and actually cook something. You remember when Ray Rayner used to, make those projects and, just screw them all up every time he'd make them?
Yeah, for you millennials out there, Ray Rayner is, about 50 years old, and from 50 years ago, and you don't know who the hell that is.
Oh, well, anyway, let me just elucidate.
No, that's fine. I'm just making the point.
Oh, okay. But, yeah, children's programming, back in the 60s and 70s, yeah. Had a cat. We used to go ahead on Channel 9. And they would give him the instructions to do these projects. He would have already one that was made that it was what the project was supposed to look like. It never looked like the project that was the example ever when he did it. It was.
You mean like the birdhouse when you were a kid and it never worked? It never worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Did I tell you about the time I got picked for the I don't think I ever told you this. I got picked for the grand prize game, but they didn't want me.
Why?
Because they were looking for a girl.
Oh my gosh! Really?
I know, I'm so annoyed. That's like they're like.
Oh my gosh!
Ah.
That sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen, man.
No, well, back in the day there was no lawsuit.
Just you go home and that was your lot.
On the old Bozo show, yeah.
Oh my god.
Hey, what the hell? Boston had a Bozo too?
Yeah.
No.
Bozo was a franchise. Bozo was a franchise run by Larry Harmon. In fact, there were 48 Bozos at one point.
No. There's not one Bozo.
No, I know, but there was 48 Bozos at one point. Every state, the franchise, there was one Bozo in every state. But ours was the most famous Bozo. It was the most popular Bozo. But of course, you got to remember, this is WGN. WGN was cutting edge for its time, being a very powerful station, and one of the stations that broadcast in color the earliest. And so you got, our Chicago Bozo going like to 2/3 of the state back in those days. Plus, as they were building link-ups, it ended up starting to become nationwide. Yeah. And while the other Bozos kind of fell off, that's kind of funny, really. The Chicago Bozo and the Boston Bozo, I think, were the two that became the most popular Bozos in.
Was there like a congregation of Bozos, like a Bozo Jedi Council?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I know that in 1972, when they finally passed, I don't know if it was a legislative thing or just the fact that
the Bozo Act of 1972.
So basically, what happened was that the parents and teachers were starting to crack down on children's television, and a lot of the UHF stations were getting knocked off the air. I mean, their children were getting knocked off the air because, one, they leased the cartoons from the theatrical people, the theatrical cartoons, which, of course, were full of violence, which, of course, they were trying to curb that situation. And the fact that the rising cost of broadcasting just kind of made it hard, and then the several factions came together. And so finally, almost all at once, all of the UHF shows, children's shows, basically fell off the face of the earth. I mean, some people were lucky enough, like Bill Jackson, when he had Cartoon Town, he graduated to Giggle Snort Hotel and everything. And little known fact here, Bill Jackson used to be on Channel 2. He was on a major station for a small while in a series called Clown Alley before he ended up doing UHF. Huh?
I remember Giggle Snort. I do not remember Clown Alley.
Nope.
Yeah, Clown Alley was like I think it only ran like 2 seasons, very much before Cartoon Town, and then once Cartoon Town was done, and he moved to Channel 7 and became Giggle Snort Hotel. That was his lot there. And so there is a book out there, for those of you who want to go to Amazon. There is a book called Don't Touch That Dial. And it has all of a bunch of stories that stem back to the early years of television and children's television especially. Very entertaining, very good reference guide to all manner of different television shows all through the 48 states and inevitably 50 states that they were broadcasting, children's television. And it was a very interesting read, and that's how I got the information on the Bozo franchise, Larry Hartman's Bozo franchise, which also too, the Capitol Records also underwrote the Larry Harmon franchise and released records like Bozo Goes to the Moon and all these different storybooks too, which now those storybook records are now going for thousands of dollars today because of the Harmon franchise. So,
well, I would think too, given the time frames and what you're talking about, by the early to mid '80s, you had cable television, and GN was one of the few stations that was going nationwide, if not worldwide. because you had WTBS, which is now TBS. You had WOR, which is out of Secaucus, which was another station that was out there. That was a major station. And then you had WGN. Those were kind of the big three super stations that were out there. And of the three, I mean, Turner had a lot of money into TBS, and they did have some programming, but GN had some more unique programming in the fact that they had Bozo, they had Fraser Thomas and the classics, and then obviously
the family classics, right?
The biggest thing, which was they had Cubs baseball, and at the time that they had Cubs baseball, it was one of the few times that the Cubs were winning. And then they brought in Harry, and
Yeah, they brought in Harry from the Sox, yeah.
Right. So really, you're talking about, Bozo kind of went over the top, I think, because of that too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My point made, because because GN was doing innovative things. I mean, but then of course you're talking about the Chicago School of Television, which by and large was just that. The School of Television, everything pretty much next to New York. All of the things that television became started here. So that being what it is, I mean, sure, New York, had at that time Dumont, and they had all their other stations. But here in Chicago, when we had GN, and when NBC was, I think, went under a different set of call letters then, but at the same time,
NBC was always NBC. I think it was well, it's technically WMAQ, but
it was actually there was WMAQ, but then it also went by another set of letters before it became WMAQ. I can't think of the letters now at this time, but I'm sure that Channel 5 actually had a different set of call letters before it became MAQ. But with that being said, you had Dave Garroway that came from here. You had Kukla, Fran, and Ali. You had, Super Circus. You had a number of different things that happened on television back in those days here in Chicago. And the School of Chicago Television is all but almost forgotten today, which is a shame, because it's such a body of work and is such a creative force. And then also too, you had, we probably utilized the best UHF channels of any of the people working with UHF at the time, because a lot of people didn't want to dive into UHF.
Right.
But we had Channel 26, we had Channel 44, Channel 32, and 26, had all of these dance shows, which also included Tony Napoli's Italian Bandstand. Excuse me.
What?
Yes. Tony Napoli starred in a television show called Italian Bandstand.
No way.
Yeah, way. Not to mention that also Tony Napoli's family had a pizza restaurant called Benny's Pizza, which he actually worked at, which actually delivered to our bar, Ben Ami, back in the 60s. I did not know this until I actually spoke with Tony Napoli about it personally in the 17 years that I, worked his show. So it was just that type of a thing. But anyway, digressing. As far as any of that was concerned, yeah, 26 also was home to Red Hot and Blue by Butterball Crane, which was he was a WBON disc jockey, and that was his version of Bandstand, but it was real heavy on soul and rhythm and blues. Too bad no videotapes survive of that, unfortunately, because like many of the UHF stations back then, a videotape was very, very expensive. So many times they use it, they would hold on to it for a week, and then it got bulked for whatever other thing they needed to use it for. That's why so little videotape exists today of any of the programming that happened on the UHF channels.
The first few decades of television, the archives weren't very reliable.
No. I mean, Dumont dumped after Dumont became defunct in the early 50s. They dumped all of their kinescopes in the water in the lake. They did the same thing that another record label did many years earlier. Just dumped a whole lot of film into the lake, which only but few things actually exist out of that. But yeah, that and kinescopes being what they were, basically a kinescope, for those of you who don't know what one is basically a television, is basically a movie camera pointed at a television, and that's how they recorded the shows. So basically you're looking at film from off of a television screen. And they called that a kinescope.
Yeah, it was like a third-generation copy of an actual TV broadcast.
Of an actual TV show, yeah, because all shows were live back in those days. Mm-hmm. So you watch the show, and here you got this film camera against this television screen, and that's basically how they preserve some of them. I mean, unless, of course, it was up until the advent of the three camera positioning, which was created by Desilu Studios, which of course were going to I Love Lucy, and then was adapted by Jackie. So, and that's like those. Who was it
adapted by, Ivan? You missed that part. Who was it adapted by?
It was adapted by the Honeymooners.
Okay.
Yeah, Jackie Gleason saw what Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz were doing over at their studio and said, "Dang, that looks really good. I want to do that." And that's what they did. That's why those episodes look so good, because those were all done on film, before a live audience, and then done with 35 millimeter film cameras. So because both Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz both came from film studios, so they had a working knowledge of what looked good. And it was Desi Arnaz that said, "Hey, if it works good with one camera, let's try 3." Lucille agreed, and that's you look at all those Lucy shows, and that's why they still look great. That's why they still sound good. They were all state of the art for their day, and they revolutionized the situation comedy, so early on in the process.
Yep,
they used RD-77 microphones from RCA, which that's why everything sounded so good.
Not the 76s. They used the RD-77s.
No, I thought the 78s were better.
Well, that came out way later, though.
Those were,
75s, those were crap.
Yeah, we should never use the 80s because those were outsourced to Japan.
Right.
But anyway.
But not the 76X, right? The 76X was bad.
Spirit of 76?
Spirit of 76. Stickers everywhere. So anyway,
I was 5 years old when the 76, the bicentennial, the big bicentennial came.
Yeah.
So I don't have any real memory of it, but
no, me neither.
It was a low point in our nation as well, I guess, because we just got out of Vietnam.
I was working at McDonald's in 76.
Wow.
I was 16.
I
was working at McDonald's. That was one of my first jobs. Well, not one. Yeah, it was one of my first jobs because I had a couple other jobs before then. But that was one of the jobs. Ugly green uniform with stripes. We wore paper hats. No boop boop boop. No, we had to know and add and subtract everything in our heads and work real registers with real numbers and real buttons. And you had to memorize the menu. You had to go through a QSC checkup every 6 months. Quality, service, cleanliness. You had to know your stuff. I mean, McDonald's at that time, and as it is now, the well-oiled machine that it is, but back when I worked it, I mean, a lot of elbow grease, man.
Did you guys see that movie, The Founder, with Michael Keaton?
No.
Yes, I did.
That was amazing.
I would like to see it.
It was a great performance by Michael Keaton. It was a great vehicle for him, but it was a really great history lesson as to how McDonald's became the global franchise that it is today.
Great rock. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay, got something for got a quick story for us because I feel like we're getting close to that end point. So I'll throw this one at you and you guys tell me what you think.
Okay.
So apparently this happened last week, and it happened in, of all places, Poland. The headline reads, "Chocolate spills and brown goo closes a Polish highway."
Come with me.
Apparently, drivers in Western Poland
imagination.
So the drivers in Western Poland were caught in a sticky mess on Wednesday after a tanker carrying liquid chocolate overturned and spilled its contents on the road. All 4 lanes of highway connecting the city of Poznań to Warsaw were covered by brown goo. It is not immediately clear why the truck, which locals reports said had been carrying 12 tons of chocolate, overturned.
Wow.
Oh my
It ended up flying across the road, obstructing lanes in both directions. As the chocolate dried under the mild spring sun, the long lines of traffic grew on either side of the spill, and authorities said it would probably be hours before the road would be usable again. My real question is an obvious one, which is nobody thought free chocolate.
Nobody thought to scoop some of it up as they went.
Yeah, I guess.
I smell foul play, probably the work of Slugworth.
Well, I don't know.
I can just imagine what that looks like on Google Maps.
Oh no, there's pictures, there's video.
I'm sure there is.
You imagine this point from up above and everything, and oh boy, we got a bunch of brown shit, up here on the road here.
That's not shit. That's chocolate.
Oh boy!
Reminds me of that one scene in one scene in Caddyshack where they think there's poop in the pool,
it's the
and then
Baby
Bill
Ruth.
Murray eats it.
Oh yeah!
It's like, what? It's good.
It's no big deal.
No big deal.
He eats it.
I love Caddyshack.
Possibly one of the funniest movies ever made.
Yeah. I have to say, Bill Murray and the rest of them cats were on top of their game at that point.
Did you hear there's a new restaurant here in the area in Chicago that is opened? It's a Caddyshack themed.
Yeah, the Murray brothers opened it. Yeah.
Murray Brothers opened.
Yeah.
Um.
The Murray brothers opened it.
Yeah.
Well, one of us, if not all of us, may have to make a trip down there and check it out.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
Let's see if I
Man,
can. Find
I remember back in 1980, 81 or whatever, we all went to my Uncle George's house and my whole family, and we watched Caddyshack on his Betamax player that he paid $1,000 for.
Oh my gosh, Betamax!
Betamax.
Yep.
It was
The way of the
so
future.
popular in Mexico.
Yep.
It was supposed to be superior.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
It was superior video quality.
Okay, so it's in Rosemont. It's in Rosemont, and let's see. Okay, this should not be named this way. Crispy potato golf balls. Light fried garlic mashed potatoes loaded with cheddar cheese, bacon, served with a signature horseradish dipping sauce.
Oh.
Let's see, quesadillas.
Oh.
Do they have anything that kind of would sit there and be like anything? Oh, here, Spalding's hack salad.
Okay, that's
Mixed greens, pulled roast turkey, applewood smoked bacon, crumble blue cheese. No boogers though. That's good.
That's good. $50 a Smales kid picks his nose.
Yeah, the Snails kid. Is it Spalding? I thought it was Spalding. Well, anyway, yeah, it is Spalding. His name-
Spalding.
Yeah.
Spalding, get your foot off the boat.
They have burgers. They have all kinds.
Hot dogs. They have potato chips. Well, you got nothing and like it.
Yeah.
We'll have to check that out. If it's in Rosemont, I'll be in.
The only other,
You know what? Rosemont's not far from us.
No. The other thing, I don't know if you caught this either. There's a place out by Oak Brook where everything in it is it's called the Overtime Bacon Bar. Did you hear about this place?
No.
Where basically everything, it's in Lombard. And they make all kinds of stuff in it, including cocktails with bacon.
So it's just loaded down with bacon. Everything's loaded down with bacon?
Well, here, I'm looking at this here.
Bacon does not make everything better.
Yes, it does.
You ever tried bacon
Yes,
soda?
it does. I'll say it makes
soda? Terrible. Like soda pop flavored like bacon. It's terrible.
or beer
I'm willing to give it a
flavor
shot.
like bacon. Seen that.
Well, okay, Mike. Well, in that case, you will not wish to take part in the Drunken Piggy menu.
Drunken Piggy menu?
Includes things like Chocolate Piggy, a blend of finest chocolate liqueur and bacon vodka.
Oh.
Garnished with chocolate-dipped bacon and a brown sugar bacon rim.
Oh, my God. My teeth are screaming.
I know sugary and salty kind of go together, but I've had friends who are all like, they get donuts with bacon on them.
Sugary
like,
and
no,
salty.
It just doesn't work for me.
I'm sorry, sugary and salty in my universe is kettle corn.
I'm just impressed by the concept of the fact that there's such a thing as bacon vodka.
Wow.
There's bacon beer too.
Welcome to America.
Yeah.
Yep.
They even have okay, I don't see pictures for this, but apparently they have a bacon brownie, a bacon Twinkie, a bacon root beer float.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. I'm getting sick just thinking about it. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I love bacon when I have it in an omelet. I love bacon on the side of my eggs. Okay, I'll even go as far as venturing into a franchise. But I don't know. I don't know. Bacon vodka, I'm just like thinking.
Obviously they do have other bacon options. They do have non-bacon options, by the way. But they do have...
That's what they're known for?
Here, you'll enjoy this. Here's the bacon sampler. Ready? Bacon mozzarella sticks, bacon and steak roulades, bacon jalapenos, bacon wrapped wings, bacon ganache, bacon ravioli, or bacon mushrooms. A choice of any of the four with assorted sauces.
Okay, I'll take two, please.
I can go with the bacon mushrooms. I think bacon mushrooms sound tasty. You know, I can go with the bacon cheese sticks. I can do that. But I don't know.
Bacon chili mac. There's a bacon chili mac. That sounds good.
Oh, the bacon cheese and mac. I mean, I can go bacon cheese and mac on that. I could do that.
Okay, you guys, I'm gonna go hit the fridge.
All right.
So,
yeah. He's gonna look for some more bacon.
Yeah, I gotta go find more bacon.
I think this is a good point. But like I said, I figured this was a good point. Now we're all hungry, and you'll be hungry for our next episode.
There you go. So as we go ahead, we pull ourselves away from the round table. Join us again here for the Squares of the Round Table, and you can catch us on YouTube and LinkedIn, I believe.
Well, I'll put it up on my LinkedIn, but Mike, can you give people where they can catch us?
Yeah, we are on Instagram and Twitter at SOTRT Podcast. We're on Facebook. Check us out on YouTube, Squares of the Round Table Podcast. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. We appreciate it. And coming soon to podcasting formats near you, hopefully within the next month or so. We'll have that all nailed down. We appreciate you listening and hope to hear from you again soon. Give us an email if you'd like. It's sotrtpodcast@gmail.com. Send us a comment, send us a compliment, send us an insult, send us whatever you like. We appreciate it. We appreciate any kind of attention. We're all attention grabbers here. We all like it here.
Yeah, we all like that kind of thing. So, hey, thank you for joining us. On behalf of myself and Mike and Jeff, have a great day. Enjoy.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Okay.